Hey, we're here for another edition of Oilers Live Tuesday. Excited to have as guest co-host tonight, Dash at Dash in the Park, and then former Edmonton Oilers goaltender, drafted by the Oil and played for the Oil, Mr. Joaquin Gage. Thanks and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's gold medal Tuesday, I guess, with the ladies playing. So thanks for taking time out of your day to at least get past the first period. It doesn't look so good for them. They're down 2-0, but lots of hockey left.
Absolutely,
lots of hockey
left. I'll be tuning in shortly, no doubt.
Thanks for taking time away from the game to join us.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah,
no problem.
And we'll have to save this for another show, but. Man, I've actually, over the years, women's hockey just keeps getting better and better, and I haven't missed a game, I think, probably for, 8 or 9 years when the women's worlds come. I love it. It's good.
Yeah, I just, I see what's happening now, and so tough because obviously Canada and the U.S. women they're pretty much head and shoulders above all the other countries. I mean, Finland's always kind of knocking at the door a little bit more. So now I'd like to see them grow the game a little bit differently than what they're doing. I think I would my way to help the women's game is because these rivalries are so key with I think they should just have a world regular season, right? Like maybe it's 30-40 games a year. It's travel to different countries. I mean, they come back to Canada, the Team Canada, whoever they're playing, if they go to an NHL rink, could be all over, who knows, Montreal one weekend or here in Edmonton the next. And, they probably get a lot of fans, especially if they played the US, right? And then that whole thing comes to the World Cup at the end. Maybe it's a point system, and then just some sort of playoffs, right? Like, it's so hard to watch this when they're down 2 in a gold medal game and a winner take all. I understand it's the format, but man, you don't really find out who the best team is. I don't think in a 1-game playoff a goalie can steal it. I've been known to steal it for the other team sometimes, but they like just to see a full 7-game series of the women, and whoever that is, if it's against the US, I think that would just build a lot more momentum. And I think they grow the game a lot better worldwide. And when it does get into those Olympic type settings, I think you'd have a better product because you get more exposure throughout the whole world.
Yeah, 100%. It's hard to disagree with that. I mean, as I said, I think the game is just become so good, right? And the speed, and in fact, I've played even rec hockey against some of the women that have played top level, and they're out there making the guys look foolish half the time. Not me, of course, but the other guys, and they're the women's game is really great. I used to I coached a women's team back about 20 years ago, sort of in the early goings, and that was a lot of fun. Anyway, we digress a little bit. We're about 2-3 weeks ago, we got into a conversation about Oilers goaltending, which is, as you know, and you've done enough shows and you've watched enough of the Oilers to know this is always a hot topic, and has been a hot topic, I think, for a number of years. We seem to be a hotbed for developing goaltenders that seem to do well elsewhere than in Edmonton, and so let's just put it out there. A lot of times, a lot of the ire of NHL fans, Oilers fans, sometimes gets centered around Dustin Schwartz and the goaltending coaching there, and of course Olivier Rodrigue is there as well, part of that team. And so we got talking, Dash and I got talking a little bit about, what role. I've had a former goaltender on the show in the past that, suggested that he didn't feel like a goaltending coach had that much of an effect. But then you got guys like Korn and Allaire that seem to be, pumping out world-class goalies. So I wanted to get your feeling. I mean, you've played on a number of teams, both minors and with the Oilers, and you've probably had, a dozen or so goaltending coaches in your career. I'd love to kind of get your experience and understand, what your thoughts are and how you see that role really affects, how a goalie plays in the NHL. And then, the flip side to that is maybe let's talk about what that means for the Oilers, or what you think that means for the Oilers, and what you've, what you can see. Obviously, not physically being in the dressing room and being around Dustin Schwartz doesn't necessarily mean you understand exactly how he coaches, but maybe you have some insight into that.
Yeah, it's a good question, because really, if you look at when I started, even if you go back to like early 90s in my junior career, we didn't have goalie coaches, right? There might have been a friend of someone coming in at a certain point. My first year pro, I remember Scott Housen hired a guy, and this guy just kind of put out videos and told everyone just to butterfly. He was I can't remember his name, but he was completely useless. And he just our minor league team was in Cape Breton and Sydney, and there was a bar called Smooth Herman's, and I think he spent more time at that place than looking after my game. But but as I got older, there was more guys that started working with pro goalies. Not so much the number ones. The number ones were kind of left alone, unless things were really going south. They were more with the guy that wasn't playing that much. And I had my first really good goalie coach was Dave Pryor and he was, I don't think he's there. He was with Washington for years. And then he was with Vegas for a little bit. Mike Rosati, who is the goalie coach there now. Mike and I actually played together in Portland, and Dave was our goalie coach. So he just kind of stepped into that role. Really, he was a goalie himself. So I do think that's a little bit important, just to have some sort of experience with it. But very knowledgeable about the position, and was the toughest thing, because everyone plays a little bit differently. And I think that the relationship that you build with your coach, like, you have to like each other. It's like anything else, right? It's hard to work with someone that you don't have a rapport with. But I was fortunate. Pryor was great because he was brutally honest, but a really good guy. And he didn't change much with my game. He just saw little deficiencies. Well, maybe a lot of deficiencies. I don't know, but I like to say a little. But he just calming me down, showing me things. Like, that was the kind of the first time even I started watching video of myself play, right, and different situations. So that was huge. And then obviously, my last year with Edmonton, Pete Peters was actually my goalie coach.
Oh, right.
And Pete was old farm boy, and still, like, tougher than nails and strong as an ox. But I mean, he was still playing like, just come out and cut down the angle, and if they beat you, they beat you, right? Like,
right.
And I was a really impressionable goalie. So if someone told me to do something, I would kind of do it, to the point where it did kind of affect my game a little bit. I got too much in my head and started trying to just implement what they had taught me, and just not take maybe some of what they said and try to improve my own game with what they told me. Right. So it's a fine line, I think, because everyone plays a little bit different. My last goalie coach in Sweden, that was when I really knew, gosh, having a goalie coach means such a big deal. We would go out on the ice half an hour before practice, and he would develop these little drills that we would do, and just going over the game before and saying, okay, well, this didn't look too good on this play. And we even catered the drills to the teams that we were playing against, right? Where were their strengths and stuff. So you were just immersed in how the other teams played on the power play, which this guy loves shooting the puck from here. Like, how is our movement? And then we would have fun with, okay, get ourselves in different positions and how we would recover back to a post or something like that, right? So that was, I mean, I had a great year, and half the credit was for him, right? Because he was a phenomenal goalie coach. But that's what I think is the most important thing. I don't know Dustin Schwartz. It's funny, I've never met the guy, but I've never heard a guy say a bad thing about him. Like, just highly motivated, very, very structured. Obviously, being a teacher at Vimy Ridge Academy for years, I think that helps. That experience of building that relationship as teacher to student with guys. And I can always tell it might just be a goalie thing, but I can always tell through body language when the goalie coach is talking to the goalie with whether he's receptive or not, right? Like, there's might be a look away and things. And from the most part, when I do watch Oilers practice and see especially Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen, they're very attentive to what Dustin Schwartz has to say, right? And so to me, there's a really good relationship with them. You don't need a guy coming in and yelling at you for a bad game, but maybe just looking at being even throughout it. Maybe you have a game where you win 2-1, but then you go over a couple things maybe you did wrong, right? So just building that relationship that way, that's the most important thing I find with a goalie and goaltender coach. But I mean, being from the outside, and you turn the fan switch on and you see a guy let in 4 goals on 4 shots. They're fans are wondering what the goalie coach is doing. And at that point, I mean, they're not reinventing the wheel, right? They're just there to maybe, goaltending's kind of like playing golf with your golf swing. It's trying to get not create bad habits and keep moving forward once those things start creeping in, and then, like, you see guys kind of start to pull themselves back and go back to their basics. But to me, it's just it was always the relationship first, and building that trust, and then of course results.
So it's interesting you mentioned the golf swing, because when I think about goaltending coaches, immediately that's the first thought that comes to mind, right? As a swing coach in golf, right? And sometimes you have a good swing, sometimes you don't. It's not anything necessarily that the swing coach can get you through, but it becomes a confidence thing. And in the lead up to this show tonight, I was reading about other goaltending coaches and what they thought was most important. And there was a theme that kept coming up that, goaltenders live and die by the confidence that they have, right? And that, a lot of what, a goaltending coach had to do is motivational rather than actually functional, right? I mean, I'm not sure that you could, say change Tiger Woods' swing, but you could give him the confidence to have a good swing over and over and over again, right? I mean, and so, mechanically he's got what he's got. He's, got that talent. And I think the same could be said about, goaltending coaches. I mean, I'm not sure. It is the one position I've happily stayed away from my whole life. And, but I mean, it makes sense to me that, confidence would be, I think there was a comment made. I can't remember who said it, so I'm not going to try. But it was basically, you could just, rather than calling hockey, let's just call it goalie, because the goalie is such an important aspect to this game. And so, I mean, in your mind, does that sound reasonable from your experience? Like, your confidence level, did that really sort of figure in?
Yeah, there was different ways of motivation. I have to kick it back to that relationship building. Like, I remember once when Thomas Magnusson, who was my coach in Sweden, and I had a poor game, and he could tell I wasn't really approachable after the game, right? So he kind of just he waited a bit, and then the next practice I was feeling, it was that confidence thing. I let in a couple bad ones, and I felt bad, and then he develops these drills. And I didn't even realize at the time what he was doing. But the drills that we were doing were specifically designed because of the goals that I had allowed the game before. And so, and all of a sudden I'm doing these reps and stopping these pucks and and I, you're all of a sudden you're feeling pretty good about yourself. And then he comes up to me and goes, "Oh, well, why the hell did you allow those last game?" Right. And then there was a kind of a big laugh. So he built me up kind of indirectly with that. So it's not always about you're the best, you rah guy, right? I think there's with that relationship and how you get into that repetition of, okay, look, I'm going to go work with my goalie coach. I wasn't at the point where I just wanted to, oh man, I don't want to do this today. It was like, it was part of my routine and I enjoyed doing it from the beginning. So, and then just realizing what he had done while we were practicing, it was quite funny. And, he's an awesome guy. It was just one of his ways of getting me out of that funk, I guess, what you're talking about. Okay, it's not always just you're just talking to a guy and boosting him that way. It's showing him what he's actually capable of. I think that's a tool that I've heard a lot of really good goaltending coaches use.
Yeah. And conversely, I mean, he knew how to make you tick, right? I mean, that's part of the communication. That's part of the relationship. That's part of his putting himself in your skates. You know what I mean? To understand, okay, well, I don't operate this way, but I know how Gage or Joaquin operates. So, this is what I will say to him today in order to build him up that way, right? So I think communication can be such a key part of that.
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't many words spoken until the end of the drills too, right? So that the relationship is enormous. It's just, and I mean, I remember as a kid, Ian Clark, who's the goaltending coach of the Canucks, I believe still. Yep. I remember going to his first goaltending camp. The only reason he asked me to come to help him out, and he was just starting out with his goalie camps, and he was a goalie for the Thunderbirds at UBC, and I just remember all he taught were 2-pad stacks and kick saves. And I'm like, geez, how's this guy one of the top NHL goalie coaches? But another guy that was like completely charismatic. Like when he walked in, everyone knew he was in the room. So I can see how why guys enjoy working with him for sure.
Yeah. So we've talked about this. I mean, I think we got a good feel for the goalie coach, the confidence, the relationship. That, I mean, because I want to get to some of the questions some of the fans are asking tonight. And Dash, I know you've got a couple of questions as well. Yeah. We only have you for so long. I mean, if you're running a franchise, I mean that, and in this case, Oilers fans, they're constantly on Dustin Schwartz, right? I mean, you've seen it. You're on Twitter, of course. Nothing good ever comes off of Twitter, but I mean, is this valid? Is this a valid point? I mean, would you be the guy that says maybe it's time for a change? And do you think that's? I mean, we've gone through this. We've gone through a tough time as Oilers fans, right? I mean, I grew up during a time when we had Grant Fuhr and Andy Moog, and of course, it was a different style of game back then. Of course, you could outscore a bad night, and you can't do that anymore. Is it time to open up and start looking at other options, or do you think the fans are maybe a little bit misled in terms of how important this role is to the team?
I don't think a lot of fans know what actually goes into the whole job description of being a goaltender coach. So he's responsible for not only his own goalies, but also the goalies in the minors and reports on them. Also, one of the major things that they do is scout opposing goaltenders, right? So looking at their weaknesses, how to score on them, what to do, what to make them uncomfortable. Shootouts, massive thing for research on guys and showing them what to do and stuff like that. So it's not just
shooters' tendencies.
Yeah, going over that, okay, well, we all know where Ovechkin's shooting from, but things like that, that go into it as well. And I think those types of things that we don't see as fans, looking from the outside, I tend to believe, because just from the way some goaltenders in Edmonton have performed in the past, and Dustin Schwartz has been here, I just believe that there are a lot of other things that he does really well as building that relationship with the goalies. So that's the only way I could see him, why he's still with the Oilers, because you look around the league and some of these guys. I talked to my buddy Eli Wilson, who has one of the biggest goaltending schools on the planet, and I asked him if he wanted to get back into the NHL and start. He goes, "No way, man! You're the lowest on the totem pole, right? You can." I mean, he was telling me some Hitchcock stories that hearing him come in, and if the goalie let in a bad one, he would be ripping the goalie coach, right? So it's a tough. You're the lowest on the totem pole in the pecking order as the coaches. So there's obviously something else with Dustin Schwartz that's keeping him around to have that, because if you look at just performance, I don't think just looking as an outsider, right, you'd think that some of these he would be gone just from the performance of some of the goalies at certain times.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's fair statement. All right, Dash, I've done all the talking. Actually, Joaquin's done all the talking, but you can...
That's why we brought him here.
Sorry, boys.
That's what a guest is supposed to do, so it's good.
Yeah.
Honestly, people don't want to listen to me, so that's good. Go ahead, Dash.
We brought Gage here for the eye candy and the information.
That's right.
I'm listening to what you're saying, and I guess the different things that jump out for me are, you look at some of the different, like a guy like Benoit Allaire in New York, right? Like he's almost a rebuild catalyst. Like it doesn't matter what goalie he touches, whether it was Lundqvist or any of his backups, whether it was Talbot or Antti Ranta, or you look at Georgiev or Shestrikin now. It's a factory. And, Arizona's been a factory, whether it was Sean Burke getting his hands on goalies. I understand, the head trajectory style and how it was taught to Bill Ranford and Ranford to Quick, and how these guys like Valaquette and Valaquette and different coaches teach that style. Why, if a guy like Schwartz or certain goalies are teaching that style, what's Benoit Allaire doing different? What's Burke doing different? Are they just better at that communication and relationship part, and that's what makes them special? Or like, why is Benoit Allaire just turning out goalies like a factory?
That's a really good question. I think.
Thank you.
I mean, in my opinion, okay, so this is funny because I just heard this the other day. Brooksy, the newspaper guy for the Post in New York, and I think local guy Jason Strudwick was talking to him the other day. Okay, and he asked Henrik Lundqvist about what about the best saves he ever made, and Henrik goes, I don't really know. And then Brooksy went back and kind of looked up some of his saves in big moments, like in the Stanley Cup Finals and gold medal games, and he actually showed them to Henrik. And this is funny. I was obviously, goalies were a little bit different in how we think, but this is kind of, I'll give you guys an insight to goalies. We don't like making the big windmill glove saves or the reaching out with the pad and kicking it out. Because usually those mean that we were out of position and had to do something really drastic to stop the puck. And when Brooksy asked Henrik about these great saves, it just reminded me of being a goalie, like when you'd have to reach out and you'd almost be mad because you probably did something wrong to put yourself in a bad position. I remember just like I would be moving side to side, back, forth, quick shot, and I would be there and it would hit me in the chest. And I would always tell myself, man, that was a good save. That hit, like that guy had nothing. That's a great save to me, because that whoever was shooting on me had a whole net, and all of a sudden I came over, I was square to the shooter, faced him, no rebound. And in my mind, I'm going, that is an unreal save, where most people are thinking, just hit him in the chest, right? To us, that's a great save, because we tracked, we followed the play. And that's what, if you look at all those goalies that Allaire coaches, watch how many pucks hit those guys in the chest. Sean Burke, how many pucks hit him in the chest? When he grabbed a hold of Dubnyk, like, I saw him just quiet down completely. Mike Smith too, like, quiet down completely. Like, you know, and they were pretty active goalies. I played against Henrik when I was in Sweden, and he was really active, right? He was a really phenomenal young goalie at the time, but having to do a little bit too much to make the save. I think that is the biggest thing that they teach is the tracking and getting set and anticipating on where the puck is going to come from. So it's not always about the Grant Fuhr big windmills, although they're great for the fans and get everyone pumped up. But for goalies, we don't want to make those saves. We want that stuff to just be picking cherries and hitting us in the chest, or a quick little stick deflection to the corner. That's a great save to a goalie.
Michael's point, that's like pointing out to Tiger Woods that fantastic shot from the sand, and he's just pissed off because he hit it in the sand.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah.
So yeah, I get that. That makes sense. So do you think, like, do the Rangers almost scout that way? Right? You talk about anticipation and you talk about tracking, and head trajectory is, for those that don't know, just that, right? That style was, I guess, something that Devan Dubnyk accredited to his success, because you're using your head to track the puck, and you kind of lock your eyes like you have blinders on, and you use your head to track the puck. And the whole idea behind that is, if your head is there, your body will follow, and you're a fraction of a second faster because you're there already before your eyes have told you where to go. Dubnyk said that was amazing. He said that the biggest thing was that, Nashville fixed his head, and Phoenix fixed his skill. And that's, quieting him down and doing that was part of it, because of the fact that he could now, play a little deeper in his net. So Dubnyk was obviously had that skill to be able to track pucks and to be able to know where to look. And, there's obviously different visions from different goalies and different hockey players, period. You look at Gretzky. Do you think now, when you point that in the Oilers' direction, and, Dustin Schwartz has, Koskinen playing pretty deep in his net, I'd say there's a lot of nights that he makes Koskinen can look 5'10" instead of 6'7". Does he actually have a bad glove hand, or is he just playing too deep? Because, in Russia, he could play farther out, and, there was less back and forth. And so I guess my long-winded point to get to this question is, does maybe Koskinen not have that skill to be able to track the puck as well as somebody like a Dubnyk in the past, and so that's why when he's playing deep in his net, he's not making the right moves?
I don't think he uses his size to his advantage enough. For one, when he's playing well, I think he is. Like, there's times when you can play a little bit more out of your crease. I think that was one of the reasons of Mike Smith's success last year, because his decision making of when to be at the top of the crease and when to play back, I think he got it right almost all the time. But
Smith's more athletic. He can recover better, I think.
Well, that's true, but I think Mike Smith knows he can play as a blocker, but he can also make saves. And I think when Mikko struggles, he might as well just have two blockers on his hand. And he's like, if I were to get a hold of him, I'd say, like, you know what, just for the first bit of practice, let's just stay on our feet. Let's it may be a half butterfly. Let's not just go down full butterfly every single time, because it becomes a crutch after a while, I think. And you just look at goalies that are lasered in. You look at Carey Price sometimes, like, a guy will come right down the slot and rip one shelf, and he'll pick it right out of the air without going even his knees touching the ice, right? Yeah. I think that he gets, it's a confidence thing. By going down, you think you're covering more, so at least that way it'll hit you. But I think Mikko has to start Not all the time, because you will get in trouble, because NHL guys will rip it past you. But I think there's a point where he should start making saves too, right? There's a difference between making yourself big and blocking it and making saves. And I just think he has become, over the last bit of the year there, he was just a blocker, right? I mean, when you become a blocker, you can get beaten, and your rebound control isn't that good too, usually, because you're just hoping it hits you at a time. So if he can get back to just making a few saves and feeling comfortable doing that, I think he can get back to where he was a couple of years ago.
I think it sounds to me, I mean, you're kind of going around it, but it sounds like a confidence thing, right? And when you got the fans against you, and seemingly, I mean, lots has been made recently about the fans and with Larson leaving Edmonton and that type of thing. So I'd be curious how much of that is confidence related.
It's going to be tough for him. I remember when I came back to Edmonton and I started a game and I heard some groans up in the stands, like, oh, jeez.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, by the way. I didn't mean for that to be too loud.
Michael and I had a few too many.
Yeah. Hey, I've just got a couple of quick questions before we let you go for the night. And these are coming from some of the folks on Twitter and watching. One joke question was, know any good financial planners? We'll go. Where do you? And we'll try to get through these quick. Where do you see goaltending going in the future? What was your favorite era?
Oh, goalies are really good, man. I don't particularly like the direction with scouts. So not looking at. Yeah, unless you're over 6'3", I think they're going to be missing out on a lot of really good goalies. Mm-hmm. But I mean, of course, I'm going to like the goalies when I played, right? And I played with some beauties. Like Billy Ranford was great. Oh, yeah. He loved making second and third saves with throwing out the pads and stuff. And then I got to play with Cujo, and he was so calm and just a beast when the game was on the line, and he just stopped everything. He was phenomenal, man. I like those guys that played 70 games a year. Those direct number one guys. I don't think you have that anymore. I don't know if it's possible with the way the game is. It's just so taxing physically and mentally, and the speed, and so it's more of a mental thing to stay strong throughout the whole year. But I like the throwback of the reigning number one goalie, the Brodeurs, the Waz, the Hashicks, just those solid guys that were the pillar of consistency with goaltending back then, right? Those guys were awesome. Kirk McLean, I loved going to watch him, right?
So. Yeah, I never would have thought about Ranford and Cujo. That's kind of cool. You got to play with them. Another question came in, which maybe along those lines. Who is your goaltending hero?
Oh, it was Fierzy.
Look at the number in front of him.
Yeah. It was Fierzy, man. He was the best. I remember I used to, I had hair back then, but when I put my helmet on, I'd kind of tease up the fro a little bit to come out of the helmet, just like he did, And I remember when my dad, I finally, I had secondhand pads forever. And I finally got a new set, and they were the DNR pads, man. That was, I slept with them on. They were in my room. Those things were all leather and deer hair, right? So I had to spend the first 2 hours with the snow seal and seal them all up and stuff. But yeah, Fierzy, and it's great because, I played with some pretty cool guys, and I'll see. I saw Brian Muir, and last year it was Ethan Morrow, and seeing some of these old guys that I used to play with and stuff. But when I go, I'm fortunate enough to go to certain events, right, and see some of the old Oilers and be around them, and I can't tell you how cool it is when Grant Fuhr rolls into the alumni room or whatever, and he comes up and goes, "Hey, Joaquin, how you doing?" I go, you know my name? I still to this day, it's crazy.
Still starstruck.
Yeah, and he's I don't know if you ever met this guy, but man, salt of the earth. This
Yeah,
guy.
met him a
He's
couple of
just-
times. Agree.
and he's
100%.
he's
Ditto.
just such a cool dude. And man,
So are you, man. So are you. Gage.
Yeah.
I can see.
Not
I
that
can see
cool.
how you aspired to be him.
So we're just about out of time here, and want to thank you. I mean, this is
Very
great.
much.
I'd love to get you back on because there are, I'm based in Halifax now. Of course, you played for the Cape Breton Oilers.
Yeah.
And formerly the Nova Scotia Oilers here in Halifax, and some cool players went through there. You played with the Wayne Gretzky of Pims, Bonvie. So there's got to be one or two Bonvie stories in there. I'd be.
Oh, there's a lot.
Yeah, I'd
There's a
love
lot
to
of
hear
Bonvie
about
stories, yeah.
that.
We could have a
For
whole
sure.
show on that.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. So one of these times we'll have to get you back on, and maybe we can chat a little bit about
Yeah,
some of your
perfect. Let's,
experience,
I'll just
right?
double that amount of beer. I was
And the Wheeling
Yeah, no
Nailers.
problem.
You played on the Wheeling Nailers, like
Yeah, there's
I've,
not many teams I didn't play for. That's the thing. I remember we had Craig McTavish on our podcast, and he said, "Yeah, I was looking up Joaquin's stats, and you really knew that he just loved to play because I think he played in 14 different leagues."
an MVP at one of them, I might add.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Won the Hart in one of them.
right on.
It was a process of elimination. I found the league where I would be the best.
That's great. Again, thanks
Gage.
Dash for setting this up, and everybody
problem.
else have a great night. If I didn't get to your questions, sorry, we'll get to your questions next time. We're going to be back next Tuesday at 6 Mountain, as always, for the live stream. And Joaquin, if you don't mind staying just 2 seconds, we'll finish this off. Everybody else have a great night. Thanks from Dash and I. Have a great night.